Atlanta, Georgia, the heart of Southern college football, but it's two northern teams that will play for the national championship here on Monday. Ohio State in search of its 9th ever national championship. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish standing in the way. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Atlanta. Dave Revson, Howard Griffith, and Jake Butt. Man, we are excited to get going here. We got 2 hours of coverage coming up of Ohio State Media Day. Guys, you could not ask for a better matchup in terms of fan interest. Two of the best programs in the history of this sport, number one and number two in terms of consensus All-Americans all time. What excites you the most about what we're going to hear here over the next couple hours?
You know, I think it's the brands. I think immediately you think about the brands that are here that have an opportunity to win a championship, and then you go into the storylines, how they got here. Look at when you talk about Notre Dame losing that early game to Northern Illinois, and then the struggles that Ohio State had during this year, and there was a lot of questions about whether this team could actually get here. But to have them both here having an opportunity to compete for a national championship, it's going to be a fun time.
I'm fascinated by this Buckeye football team. You know, you look at the seniors on this team. This is an experienced veteran team. Jack Sawyer comes to mind, and he was part of that 2021 recruiting class, which by all metrics, it was the greatest recruiting class that Ohio State had ever signed. The expectations couldn't be higher. They're always high in Columbus. No wins over your rival, no conference titles, and now it comes full circle back, an opportunity to win the ultimate goal, which is a national championship. And to me, watching the Texas game, it felt like all the adversity that these players have endured throughout their career allowed them to be calm in the sense of the adversity within the game. I'm interested not in necessarily what the players say, but how they say it, the energy they carry as they look to, fulfill this goal and bring home a title to Columbus.
It's pretty amazing to think of how much things have changed here in the last year and how the new college football playoff format allowed this matchup to occur. We would never have had it. I mean, these two teams would not have made it in the old 4-team college football playoff for exactly the reasons that you were talking about, Howard. The loss to Northern Illinois for Notre Dame, and Jake, the two losses that you referenced for Ohio State. It almost feels like you have the opportunity of a new life here, and both of these teams have taken advantage of it.
And that's what's been exciting about this entire journey for both teams, having the opportunity to get here. Neither one was the 1 seed, neither one was the 2 seed, and they're still here. You have an opportunity to have 12 teams, the best teams that you can put together, and let them fight it out in this playoff format. And then all of a sudden, this is the kind of matchup you end up with. So this is going to be great, not only for the fan bases, but also for college football.
I was always told, even going back to Pee Wee football, like football's a metaphor of life, and that's basically what you guys are alluding to here is no one's perfect. When you sign up to play football, you're actually guaranteed to fail and slip up at times. But how do you respond? And, that team meeting for Ohio State after the Michigan game, that was a moment in time, a fork in the road. These Buckeyes had a decision to make of what they wanted this season to be, and even talking about the narratives of should Ohio State move on from Ryan Day, one of the winningest coaches in college football history. It's crazy. Well, we know what decision these Buckeyes have made. It was to go make the world pay because they believed they were capable of what we've seen on film.
And still one more win.
60 minutes.
One more win standing in the way of the ultimate college football glory. Cannot wait to hear from the Buckeyes here over the next couple hours. Ryan Day will join us on the set. We'll talk to a bunch of the players as well. A ton to talk about from Atlanta. But for now, we send it to Rick Pizzo in Chicago.
Dave, thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from the Buckeyes, getting their perspective on Monday night's matchup with Notre Dame. But first, welcome inside our Big Ten Network studios. Rick Pizzo alongside Jerry DiNardo. It's fascinating when you think back, Jerry, and not just to the Michigan game, but to the Oregon loss as well. Right. Howard mentioned Notre Dame wouldn't be here because of the NIU loss earlier in the year. And for Ohio State, it's the same situation. The 12-team playoff allowed them to get into the field and now they've made a terrific run through the bracket.
Yeah, certainly a different path for Ohio State, but I think we're going to see different paths from all teams that are eventually going to get to it. But this is part of Ohio State's history, right? I mean, this is where you go to Ohio State, one of the reasons you go to Ohio State. So this should be their comfort zone, because every player that signed with Ohio State years ago wanted to play for a national championship, but this team's path is different. First of all, they lost 2 games. Ordinarily, in the past, before the 12-team playoff, you were a one-loss team or you were undefeated. Now, with the 12-team playoff, you can lose 2 games, Oregon, and they obviously lose to Michigan. So this is different for that reason. The other difference is a lot of players came back that could have gone to the NFL. It's been well publicized that they came back to beat Michigan and to win a national championship. I contend that the loss to Michigan is why they're here today. Because here's how it started, Rick. We're going to win a national championship and we're going to beat Michigan. And if there was ever a year they were going to beat Michigan, it was this year, right? Michigan wasn't as good as they've been. They lose Michigan. They come out of that. Ryan Day does a great job talking to the team, getting them highly motivated. I go to the Tennessee-Ohio State game. Clearly a different team that had played all year at Ohio State. Without the loss to Michigan, we're not watching Ohio State play for the national championship.
And I would say this, not just a different team, but a different coaching staff, because Chip Kelly has been much more aggressive in terms of his play calling in the 3 playoff games than he was against Michigan. I wonder, Jerry, if even a coaching staff sometimes, and I don't want to say this specifically happened in Columbus, gets a little bit used to its team being able to do whatever it wanted to do, because this offense had been rolling leading up to that Michigan game. It seems to be a much more aggressive play calling style on both sides of the ball, I would argue, throughout the playoff as well.
You know, one of the traps in coaching, and there's a lot of traps in coaching, is what happened to Chip Kelly against Michigan, right? This is not a good Michigan team. Well, that's not fair. It's not as good a Michigan team as they've been. So why are we going to put ourselves at risk offensively? Why can't we just kind of play it close to the vest? We're a better team than this average to good Michigan team. And this is what happens. Michigan possesses the ball, as we all know, and takes the game over. And you come out of that game as a coach, and you can't sleep, because you know, had you approached the play calling differently, you would have won the game. And yet, good for Ohio State that they lost to Michigan, because, again, if they don't lose to Michigan, I'm not sure they're playing in the championship game.
Well, and heading into that championship game, for guys like Cody Simon, for guys like Jack Sawyer, JTT, Denzel Burke, all these guys that came back because they did not have a pair of gold pants, now they have an opportunity to check one of those 3 boxes. We have said it many times, and Ryan Day has been very clear about it. We should win the Big Ten. We should beat Michigan. We should win a national championship. Hasn't happened for any of those guys that are 4th-year seniors on this team. Now they have an opportunity to check that one box that is all important.
You know, it may change the direction of the Ohio State program in a certain way. You know, you and I have talked about this off air, and I've said this on air all the time. You know, Ohio State fans would rather be 1-11 and beat Michigan than 11-1 and win a championship. And you mentioned that the portal is going to change this. National championship is more important than beating your rival. Of course you want to do both. But as we go forward, if Ohio State wins the national championship, they've lost to Michigan, it might change the attitude, perhaps not of the fans, but maybe of the team as they build their team as they go forward. Well, it's obvious they want to do both.
Yeah, and my point is that I think that attitude has changed already. Look at guys like Caleb Downs, I just mentioned him.
Right.
Will Howard from Kansas State. Quinshad Judkins comes in from Ole Miss. Of course they want to beat Michigan. It's a game on their schedule.
Right.
But if you ask any of those guys, 3 of the most important guys on this team, you can choose one or the other. Beat Michigan or win a national championship, they all have the exact same answer.
Right, it's an easy question. Would you rather be 11-1 or 1-11 when it comes to the rival game? The fans might say, I'd rather be 1-11, beat Michigan. A player is going to say, I'd rather be 11-1 or whatever in 1 or 2 and win a national championship.
Especially a player not from Ohio, especially
Correct.
a player that didn't grow up knowing the Woody and Bo rivalry. If you grew up to win football games, you grew up to win the national championship. And speaking of the national championship, we have you covered start to finish on Monday, bringing the Big Ten Live CFP National Championship pregame at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And then after the game, turn it back here. We'll have complete post-game coverage on the field, interviews. We'll get segments from our guys on the field at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, take you inside the press conference room. And, of course, we'll wrap up the night with the big show. As now just 2 sleeps away from Monday's national title game, chances are Marcus Freeman, Ryan Day probably not getting a lot of sleep as Ohio State and Notre Dame will face off with that national championship trophy up for grabs. Woody Hayes has 5 national titles as the Buckeye head man. Urban Meyer, of course, the last to win it in the very first year of the college football playoff era. Jim Tressel and Paul Brown, each with a national championship to their credit. And as we take you back to Atlanta, our crew is with a man who would very much like to add his name to this list.
Rick, thanks, and thrilled now to be joined by the head coach of the Buckeyes, Ryan Day. Ryan, this is the second time you've led a team to the CFP National Championship. What does it mean to be back at this moment?
It's an opportunity for our team to finish off what we started. And had a meeting yesterday with our team and realized that we had our first team meeting yesterday, a year ago. And here we are. But the only way this team gets to tell their story is if we win the game. And we've got to finish the mission. And it's an opportunity for, us to cement ourselves, in Ohio State history and, be the 9th team to win, but really the 3rd team in the last, over 50 years to win a national championship. There's been a lot of great teams that have come through Ohio State. And so that's really what this means. It's an opportunity, but we got to finish the mission.
You mentioned team meetings. Shaq Sawyer wrote a great piece this week where he talked about the team meeting with the players and you after the Michigan game. What were you thinking coming out of that meeting?
A lot of things, but that's life. That's life. You go through difficult times, and I thought it was an opportunity for a bunch of men to get together in a room and work through problems and talk about where we're headed for the rest of the season, but also just in life. There's going to be times where you're going to have to sit down with your family, you have to sit down with your wife, you have to sit down with your kids and figure out what's next after tough times. And it's exactly what we did. And guys had to take accountability, coaches had to take accountability, and then we had to put a plan moving forward. And so, the whole idea is, how you respond to those things in your life. And that's, I think, what a lot of guys took out of it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we got to finish the mission. That's going to be the final part of the story.
Coach, I want to take you back a couple of years. We were visiting in the spring, maybe 2 years ago, and we were talking about college football and how important it was to have a veteran team moving forward. What has that meant for you, coming off Dave's question when you talk about tough times?
Well, we've always had talented players. Ohio State's, when you look back in the last, 20, 30, 40 years, you keep going through the history of Ohio State, we had talented players. Most recently we've had talented players, but some of those guys have had an opportunity to go on to the NFL after 3 years. These guys are 4th and 5th year guys, and that makes a big difference, not only just in their play, but also just in the emotional maturity of being able to handle a long season like this with everything that comes with it. So it certainly had made a big difference on this team.
Coach, after the Cotton Bowl, we were talking about some of the adversity your team has faced and the togetherness that you have kind of developed throughout the season. How does that play into the confidence you have going into this game?
Well, I feel like, going into game 16, this has become a lot like the NFL. What I mean by that is, when you're playing, in college football, when every single week could win or lose your season, it's a different feel. Once you get to the playoffs and all of a sudden, you're playing against great teams every single week, you got to bring it every week. It's win or go home, and then you have to get back into that routine on a weekly basis and quickly turn around. And it's a lot about football. It's a lot about the ball, and our guys have embraced that part of it. And every week you have to wipe the slate clean and start from scratch, put the game plan together, walkthroughs, meetings, practice, and then go put it on the field and execute. And so, we've done that, but we have to continue to do that. We know what the recipe is. We know what we need to do. We have to play our best game in this game to win it. We know we have to do that, and that's the goal.
Coach, when you look at this particular game and you look at Notre Dame, what are some of the issues that they can cause you, not only defense and offensively, but what about special teams as well?
Yeah, all 3 phases. They put pressure on you. They play really hard. They're very athletic. They have good scheme. They know what they're doing. They recognize things quickly. They know how they want to attack you in all 3 phases. Certainly their punt rush team, looks to, get after you there, and they're creative about how they try to steal possessions, and they've had a lot of fakes and things like that. So we have to be on high alert in all phases. Field goal block, punt return, kickoff return. They're very good at that. On offense, they run the ball really, really well. Riley Leonard's an excellent leader. He's gotten better as the season's gone on, and they have weapons. They have talented players, and then on defense, it speaks for itself how well they played, and we know that. We've gone against them 2 years in a row, so we know how good they are across the board.
Coach, when we tell the story about Ohio State, one theme that continually comes up is growth. This offseason, you decided to give up play calling duties. What are some of the areas that you've grown in going into this national title game?
I think that as we lead into the game, certainly very much still involved with all of that, but leading into the game, being able to just take a step back and not, worried about calling the game, being able to message more to the players. What is everybody's job? Everyone has a job to do. And so going around to each position group and talking about that game in particular, what needs to get done during that game, looking at it from a wider lens and making sure that the whole team has a vision on how we're planning on winning that game, as opposed to calling what's the call on 4th and 3 on the left hash and the 22-yard line, because those are all the things you think about when you're calling plays.
Coach, final question for you. What does the college football playoff success of the last couple of years say about the Big Ten?
Yeah, just the depth of the league, playing 9 games. We all know that there's pluses and minuses to that, but the pluses are that each week you have to bring it at a high level. And I think that you're seeing, with the addition of the 4 teams from the last year, you're seeing different styles of play, which I think prepares us to play in the playoffs. The ability to, get big and heavy and run the football when needs to be done. But then also play in a more open game, and having the combination of doing those 2 things, I think in this league has allowed us to advance into the playoffs.
Head coach of the Buckeyes, Ryan Day. Coach, really appreciate your time. As always, you've been great with us all year and through the years. Best of luck on Monday, and we hope to see you back up here after the game at the stadium.
All
Thanks, Ryan.
All right.
It's a bit rainy and foggy in Atlanta, the Georgia World Congress Center, where Ohio State Media Day taking place before Monday night's national championship game. It's the Buckeyes and Notre Dame inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And cookies are not just for closers. Closers also get victories when your defense shuts down the opposing team in the second half, and that's exactly what Ohio State has done this year. In fact, the Buckeyes have given up fewer second half points than any other team in the country this season. One of the biggest reasons why is sitting down with our crew as we head back to Atlanta.
Rick, thank you. We are thrilled now to be joined by one of the stars of the outstanding Ohio State defense, safety Caleb Downs. Caleb, first of all, for you, this has got to be pretty cool. You're from Georgia. You're playing for a national championship back in your hometown. What does this mean for you?
It's a huge blessing to be here. God has put favor on this team to allow us to get to this point. So you'll have to have a game to play and a really tough game to play.
For you, this has been such an interesting year, right? Transferred from Alabama, you come in, you get a chance to play for a national championship right away. Give us a sense of the thought process that you went through during that transfer process and how you feel like it's worked out.
I feel like it was one of the most difficult times of my life just because I didn't really see that coming in my future. And it was a really big shock when Coach Saban retired. So for the situation to end up like this, it's an honor to be here.
It's an outstanding defense. You guys are playing at a high level, particularly now. What was the turning point for you guys this year to take you on this trajectory?
I think really learning from our losses, really learning from what allows us to lose games in the past. So whether that's Oregon, team up north, everything like that has allowed us to get to this point now.
It looks like Jim Knowles has kind of implemented a new scheme where you're playing that rover type role, put Hancock at safety, you're about 10 yards over the line of scrimmage. I imagine that takes a lot of trust. What's the conversation been like with Coach Knowles and the trust you have in one another for you to go execute from that position?
Really just learning his mindset on the defense, learning where he wants me to be in certain plays, everything like that, and how he sees the game and how I see the game. So I'm thankful for him allowing me to be in that position and allowed me to make a lot of plays.
I think one of the interesting things when you talk about the way your secondary plays is you guys' ability to tackle in the open field and come down and be able to make contact. And you want to gang tackle, but to be able to individually tackle at that level, what do you guys do? Because during the season, you can't be doing all that tackling if you want to stay healthy.
Yeah, me and Lathan do something every day to allow us to grow and allow us to continue to be high-level tacklers. Jordan Hancock has really been a huge part of this defense, and he's played at a really high level. So just everybody doing their job, and Jordan being so versatile has allowed us to play great defense.
I think to build off of that, iron sharpens iron, and you've had a chance to go against this Ohio State offense through spring ball, through fall camp. I know you guys do some good-on-good one-on-ones throughout the season. How has those reps going against this Ohio State offense prepared you for this moment?
Everybody over there has an elite level talent. Trey, Q, all the running backs in the open field, they're really difficult to tackle. And then one-on-ones with the receivers is always, it's Ohio State, they have the receivers. So it's always a difficult challenge, and it prepares us for the game.
I think one of the other things that's interesting when you look at this defense, just your abilities to attack, but it's also not giving up the big plays. So is that a mindset that you have to go through all the time that you're working on?
Yeah, the first probably week I got here, that was one of the biggest things that I remember that Coach Walton talked about, was how we've limited big plays, and that's what allows us to play good defense and good ball. So just throughout the year, continuing to emphasize that and make sure we stay on top of everything is always a big emphasis every week.
Mobile quarterbacks. When we talk to different defensive staffs or different defensive players, the one concern is always a quarterback that can hurt you with his legs. Obviously, Riley Leonard, his legs, a big part of Notre Dame's rushing attack. What's your mindset going into this game and how you can slow down the Notre Dame rushing attack?
He's played at an extremely high level, especially in the playoffs, with allowing his team to get to this point, and he's going to be really difficult to stop. And I think the biggest thing for us is really tackling him in the open field when he gets out the pocket. So just making sure that we put a cap on it at the end of the day. But he's played at a really elite level, and that's what has allowed his team to get to this point.
Caleb, final question for you. One of the things that continually comes up when the Ohio State coaches talk about you is your professionalism. Father, brother, uncle, all played in the NFL. What did you learn from them about how to approach the game?
Really just the discipline that it takes to get to that point. Really learning from my brother right now, because he's about to go into his third year after this season, and he's been playing at an elite level. He's been doing his job every day. He's continuing to grow in his routine and taking care of his body. So just learning what I need to do if I get to that level and God allows me to get to that level, and then staying in the moment right now, playing every game like it's my last game.
Caleb Downs, congratulations on a great year to this point. Looking forward to watching you out there on the field on Monday.
Appreciate that.
Rick?
Dave, thank you. Rejoined by Jerry DiNardo. Interesting to hear Caleb Downs talk with Jake Butt a little bit there about the position that he's been playing throughout the playoffs with Jim Knowles. They're calling it a rover-style position where he's 10 yards off the line of scrimmage, able to go and help in run support, but also can disguise that look and get back in pass protection as well. How much do you think that's helped Ohio State's defense?
I think it's been a tremendous help. But, Rick, we talk about this a lot, I think, during the season. Is it the Jimmies and the Joes, or is it the X's and the O's?
It's both.
It's both. If you had to make a choice, you'd want the Jimmies and the Joes and play base defense and not try to scheme the offense. When you have both, and this is an example. What Downs is doing at this rover position is Jim Knowles coming up with an X and O scheme because he has a Jimmy and a Joe that can do it. You couldn't just plug. There's probably not a second team rover. In other words, that wouldn't be part of the play calling if Caleb came out of the game.
He's a singular athlete. He's a terrific player. We saw it at Alabama. Now we see it at Ohio State. It allows you to do so many different things defensively.
Right, no doubt. Let me close about Caleb. But that's one of the most impressive interviews I think I've heard maybe in 18 years of doing Big Ten.
And he's still a young guy.
That was incredibly impressive, the way he presented himself. Some other things. Learning from the losses. This goes back to the Michigan thing. It really is learn from the loss, okay? Because the Oregon loss and the Michigan loss are two entirely different losses. So this goes back to that team meeting that Rever was talking about. It was players only and Ryan Day. And so when Caleb talks about learning from the losses, he's talking about the Michigan game. And then good versus good. This is a mature team. When people say good versus good, this is game speed, nobody on the ground. Because if someone's on the ground, you're not trying to beat your offense, you're not trying to beat your defense. You're trying to do game speed in a practice setting, which gets you ready for a game.
But you called for that from the very start of playoff preparation, right? You said, I would love to see Ohio State do nothing but ones-on-ones during playoffs practice.
Most of the time, you have to integrate it into your practice to be one-on-one, and that's what Caleb was talking about. But again, that was an impressive interview.
Well, the great news for Caleb Downs in that secondary, if you go ones versus ones during Ohio State practice and you're dealing with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate, how is it ever going to be harder when you get on the field, regardless of who you're playing against? We've also heard from Ryan Day. What stood out to you in terms of what you heard from Coach Day and his responses to Dave and the crew?
Well, the obvious thing is Ryan Day giving up the play calling. I contend, and I said this about Ryan Day when he took the job, I didn't think it would take this long. I thought he would have given this up earlier. I just know from experience, if you're at a certain school, in my lifetime, when I was at Vanderbilt, I called the plays. I could do that. I had a lot to do, but not a tremendous amount. When I went to LSU, completely different. Now it's NIL. Now it's the head coach doing a lot of different things. For a head coach at a school like Ohio State to call the plays and to still be the head coach, it's an extraordinary thing. It's almost impossible. The model was Steve Spurrier, right? He had the visor. He was at Florida. He was calling the plays, but football was different back then. Jed Fish is doing it at Washington. I'll make another prediction.
Another visor guy, by the way, as I might point out.
And he worked for Steve Spurrier. And I'll make a prediction, Jed will give it up at some point, too. Because there'll just be too many things. They'll need NIL money, and the AD might come to Jed and say, you have to call so-and-so if you want the money. And you let someone else call 1st and 10. You got to call so-and-so, not 1st and 10.
Well, I think Ryan Day was the first one to verbalize it to me that being a college football head coach is not really being a head coach. When you're a head coach at a place like Ohio State, I think Notre Dame would certainly qualify, Texas, Alabama, you're actually the CEO.
Right.
Because of how many different things you have to deal with. It is so much more than just play calling, though I do think it's also interesting that he points out whenever anyone asks him about Chip Kelly calling plays, he gives Chip a ton of credit, but says, just remember, I'm still kind of involved with this too.
Right, and the other thing, I don't know how many people realize this, you know, defensive coaches don't know as much about offenses as offensive coaches. And so it's not so obvious that Ryan Day could go in that defensive room with Jim Knowles, and Jim Knowles could be studying someone else's offense, and Ryan Day could explain what that other offense is trying to do.
Fascinating point.
He couldn't do that if he was in the offensive meeting trying to figure out the 6 plays he's going to call on 1st and 10. So it's a 10,000-foot view by an offensive coach about what your opposing offense is doing. That's one of the values. So there's a lot of X and O value to Ryan not calling the plays. It's just not as specific as calling the plays.
That's why that business, I think, comparison fits so well. If you're the CEO, you need to go check in with the COO and the CFO. If you're one of those two underneath, it's really hard to go up to the CEO and says, I'm just going to be in charge of all of it, because it's basically completely impossible. We are continuing our coverage here of Ohio State National Championship Media Day. The Buckeyes are in Atlanta, arrive on Friday night. Weather not so good, but no worries. Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be just perfectly climate controlled on Monday night when the Buckeyes face Notre Dame. And when we come back, we hear from one of the important transfers on the offensive side of the ball, running back Quinshon Judkins, with our crew right after this. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of National Championship Game Media Day. The hour is counting down until kickoff between Ohio State and Notre Dame Monday night. Either the Buckeyes or Fighting Irish will be hoisting the National Championship trophy. If Ohio State gets it done, one of the reasons will likely be the performance of their running backs. The two-headed monster of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins has been terrific, not just in their careers, but this year as a tandem, and give Henderson a lot of credit for being willing to share that workload with the Ole Miss transfer. And with all that in mind, we take you back to Atlanta.
Rick, thanks. We're joined by one of the two members of that dynamic duo backfield for Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon, you made no secret of the fact that when you transferred to Ohio State, it was in part to pursue a national championship. How has the reality of being a Buckeye compared to what you expected?
I think it's way more than I expected. I mean, when you say you want to go to Ohio State, it's to be a national championship contender, but to actually be in the situation is so surreal, man, and it's crazy. So I'm enjoying every part of the experience.
It's unusual to have two backs of the caliber of you and Travion in the same backfield. You guys are within 7 yards of one another rushing on the year, which is crazy. How has this balancing act worked?
I think just throughout the season, just the way we both are as people, not only as players, has helped each other grow in our game so much. Just having that balance between each other, no matter who's on the field. We're both going to go out there and perform, and just supporting each other, and just having different things about our games, but at the same time, we can hurt you in so many different ways. I think that's what's special about both of us.
Talk about your big guys up front. They've had some injuries, right? They've had to overcome But from the running back position, how do you support those guys?
Just supporting them like throughout the ups and lows. We had a lot of young guys step in at certain times, and with so many guys going down, having everyone in that O-line room be prepared mentally, not only physically, that they will probably go out there in the game at some point and have to go and perform. So just supporting those guys, that's what really mattered the most.
I think it's clear to anyone that has followed Ohio State or watched you guys play, there's a special togetherness, the culture and the unity. You have a unique perspective coming from Ole Miss to Ohio State. Can you describe the culture and the unity and connected nature of your team?
This place is different. Like, that's what I would say. Like, this place is different, man. And so many different group of guys from so many different places. It takes a special type of person to come to Ohio State and play. And our locker room is so close, and the players here are so special, man. And that's what truly matters. And I think that's why we're at the point we're at now, because those guys, we actually care about each other, and we actually want to go out there and win. So that means so much to each and every one of us.
When you look at this Notre Dame defense, what gives you worry or pause for concern?
I think the biggest thing that we might have to focus on, and what we're going to have to, the challenge is that the front and those guys, what they have up front. Like, they do a lot of movement, they do a lot of shifting. So that's going to be the challenge for us, and that's what we're going to have to defeat.
You talk about your play caller and Chip Kelly. I mean, it's a good problem to have so many weapons, but you talk about the job he's done, spreading the ball around and putting your unit in the best position to succeed offensively.
I think he does such a great job at that, just because we have so many different playmakers on the field at one time. It's like, okay, we can bring the ball this way or make this guy go downfield and score. So it's just so many different ways we can hurt you on offense, and that's what really challenges defenses, and that's the hardest thing for them to face.
You talk about coming together and being a real team, which is really impressive for you. But when you look at just how many weapons are there, you guys can't be selfish to be a part of this.
Yep.
Did you really buy into that, and could you believe just the strength of people wanting to be teammates when you got here?
Definitely, man. It's just so many great guys on one side of the ball, on each side of the ball. So it's like, you can't be selfish, and you have to be able to know that this guy is going to go out there. I know JJ is going to catch this ball, or I know Trey is going to run this ball and score. It's just so many different ways we can hurt you on offense, and I think the guys that we have on our team are truly unselfish. We want to win, so that's what matters.
I want to kind of give you an open-ended question here, because I have felt Will Howard is the most underrated, underappreciated quarterback in college football. The stats, the film, it's been phenomenal, and yet I don't think he gets enough credit and enough conversation. So could you describe his talent and what he brings to your team?
Definitely, I'm with you. I think Will Howard is special. He's a special quarterback. He does such great things on the field that a lot of people do not talk about, and he's a great guy who, can throw the ball deep, he can run the ball as well. He can do so many different things that I think is underrated, that a lot of people don't speak on, and he does such a great job at it, and that has become the norm for him, and I think he'll continue to do that in the future.
Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins, best of luck on Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Appreciate it.
Rick?
Gents, thank you very much. And as talented as that running back room is in Columbus, you could certainly make the argument the wide receiver room may be more talented, not just for Ohio State, but maybe the most talented wide receiver room in the entire country. Yes, you have Emeka Egbuka, the veteran. Of course, you have Jeremiah Smith, one of the best freshmen in the country, and a future top 5 NFL draft pick. But what about the ascendance of Carnell Tate, most recently against Texas? While Smith was shut down, Tate came up huge with 7 catches, 87 yards, and 5 first downs against the Longhorns. Chicago's finest is now with our guys in Atlanta.
Rick, thanks. Carnell Tate joining us now, Ohio State wide receiver who led the Buckeyes in receiving in the Cotton Bowl win over Texas. Carnell, as that game unfolded and you came to realize the heavy attention that Jeremiah was receiving from them and the opportunities that you had to step forward, what did that mean to you to kind of be the guy who turned into the go-to receiver in a huge circumstance?
It felt a blessing. Like my talent, my hard work paid off in that game and stuff like that. When the team needed me the most, I was able to deliver for the team.
This is such a talented crew, and you've had some great moments. Obviously, the Northwestern game at Wrigley Field, you were fantastic. But to be in the spotlight with a group that includes Jeremiah and Emeka, how have you kind of found the right role for yourself?
there necessarily wasn't the right role for me to find and stuff like that. My talent plays a part in the team and stuff like that. I may not get all the catches, all the touches in the game and stuff like that, but I know it takes 3 receivers to go out there and win. Even though my name don't show up on the stat sheet every day, I do my job whether it's blocking or without the ball.
You're a long way from the signing day show you came and joined us with, right?
Yeah.
But the way you've been able to develop and continue to develop, I think this is a lesson for a lot of young people when they're not necessarily in the limelight all the time. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to push through that, and how has your family been able to help you with that as well?
Attention is not always a good thing in the football world and stuff like that, but I'm able to show my worth on the team. The team values me, and I know that when the team needs me the most, I just got to go out there and perform.
The standard of wide receiver play in Columbus it's as high as it could possibly be, and it's every single year you guys are cycling through elite talent. Could you just talk about some of the work that goes on behind the scenes that goes into the standard of excellence?
It's a lot of film, a lot of catches being put up, a lot of meetings about route running and stuff like that, and a lot of breaking down different DBs and different coverages and different ways to improve your game.
What do you see when you look at this Notre Dame secondary?
We see a lot of man. They know they're going to go out there and challenge us to win and get open against man. They play with hard leverages and stuff like that, so we just got to go out there and execute.
You talk about Emeka Egbuka as the veteran in the room, the wily vet. I feel like he's been in Columbus for a decade now. What does he mean in his leadership mean to your room as a whole?
He means a lot to us. He's the oldest guy in the world. In the room, he has the most experience in the room. So we're able to lean on him whenever we need him and stuff like that. He's played in moments like this, but probably not this game in particular, but he's played in bigger games in his life.
One of the things that's seems to be a rallying cry is we want to make sure that we finish this right so all the stories can be told about this team. What are some of the stories that people don't know about this team?
At one point, it was us against the world. We encountered 2 losses. A lot of people turned their back on us, didn't think we could do it all and stuff like that. But now a lot of people are rooting for us, but they weren't there when we lost.
Would love to hear your opinion on Will Howard. I think he's so underrated and so underappreciated, and all he does is go out and freaking ball out.
Yeah.
Just give you an open-ended question here. Could you talk about your quarterback?
Will Howard's a great guy. I laugh and joke around with him all the time, whether that's in a huddle or during after a play. I don't like to always be serious. Sometimes you got to enjoy the moment, enjoy what you're doing and stuff like that, because it's not exactly who we are. We're bigger than football, so I always like to joke around with him.
People get excited about touchdown catches and outstanding grabs, but you guys do an unbelievable job of blocking downfield as well. What's the mindset there?
We all work as one machine. The run game opens up the pass game opens up the run game. So when we're doing our job on the perimeter, it helps the running backs, and then we all know that the bigger plays come on the perimeter.
One more game this season to complete your ultimate goal of a national title. But to look back and think about the adversity you have went through, the team has went through, get knocked down 7 times, stand up 8. How has that adversity played into the confidence you guys have as a unit that you can win this game Monday night?
It showed us how tough we are. You got to be able to take a punch in your mouth and get back up. We did exactly what we thought we could do. We got back up, and we're continuing to fight each and every game.
One more fight to go.
Yep.
Ohio State, Notre Dame on Monday. Carnell, can't wait to watch you out there. Thanks a lot for your time, and congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
Rick, pleased to be joined now by Will Howard, the quarterback of the Buckeyes. And Will, I think about your journey, not all that heavily recruited coming out of high school, in part because you were injured as a high school player. You end up transferring here to Ohio State, and now you're 1 game away from being a national champion. What does it mean to you to be in this situation?
Yeah, man, it means the world. And when you come into college football, and really when you think about playing football as a kid, I mean, this is a moment you dream of. It's surreal that we're here and that we made it, but it's where we expected to be. And when we sat down at the beginning of the year, when I decided to come here, one of the biggest things that we talked about was winning a national championship. And now that we're 1 game away, we're here. It's surreal. You got to take it in, appreciate it, be proud of the fact that we made it, but also understand that the job's not finished until the clocks say 0 on Monday night.
It does feel like, to a certain extent, you are fueled by doubters. Why is that a strategy that has been successful for you?
Yeah, man, I think I dive into that a little bit. I like to, any motivation I can grab, I kind of try to go get it. But at the end of the day, I think what really motivates me more than proving people wrong is proving people right, and proving those around me that, that believed in me, that gave me the resources to do what I've done, to prove them right. And to make the people proud that have stuck there with me through all the hard times and all the stuff that I've had to deal with, man. Like I think that's more of what what drives me.
How would you describe this team?
Man, that's a good question. I would say resilient. I think it's not been an easy year by any stretch. We've had to endure some stuff, man. But I think a lot of other teams, given the stuff that we've had to go through, would crumble. And we just fall back to the level of our training. And at the end of the day, when we look back at our fall camp and all of our work that we put in really up to this point, man, it's a foundation. And we talked about that. We have to build a strong foundation so that when the storms come, because they're going to come, and that's the thing. Every year, it's very rare that you see a team go through a year perfectly. You're most of the time having to deal with some sort of adversity in one way or another. So just the way that this team has overcome that and been able to make it to this point, is something to be proud of.
There's a bit of a stigma for talented wide receivers. They might be divas on the sideline or asking for the ball.
Yeah.
It seems like there's none of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like there's none of that for your wide receiver room. Can you talk about the selflessness of the weapons you have around you?
It's really impressive, man. I've been so, blown away by that. Like the fact that, we got 3 guys that really could be probably 4 or 5 that could be wide receiver ones at a lot of places. And you don't hear him complaining about getting the ball. I'd say the only one that does complain about getting the ball is Coach Hart. He's the one that gives me the most hard time, if I don't throw it to his guys. But no, those guys, man, are unbelievable. On the field you see what they're able to do, but off the field, they're knowledgeable, they're smart, they know where they're supposed to be every play. I don't have to tell them the fact that we have a true freshman out there, and he doesn't have many MAs, man. It's a really cool group to be a part of, and I just got to get the ball to my guys, man, and let them do the rest.
I talk a lot about playing the quarterback position is difficult, but playing the quarterback position at Ohio State comes with a lot of other things. How have you grown as an individual playing a spot at Ohio State?
Yeah, I've grown a lot, man. I've grown in so many different ways coming here to Ohio State, and I talked about it earlier, but I think this was the best decision I've ever made, to come to Ohio State. I've met so many amazing people here. There is a lot that you have to deal with as the quarterback of Ohio State. But all I tried to do was rely on my faith in the Lord. Rely on those people around me that that have been there through the ups, through the downs. I've met so many amazing people here. I met my girlfriend here. It was here we are sitting here for the national championship, so it was the best decision I've ever made.
You've seen a number of different defenses this postseason. Jeremiah talked about, hey, if you play man-to-man coverage, we're going to make you pay. Tennessee, Oregon, then in comes Texas. They play a lot of zone coverage. Now you're going back to Notre Dame, a lot of man coverage. What are the challenges you expect to see from Notre Dame's coverage scheme?
Yeah, the thing that Notre Dame does so well is they challenge really well on the outside. I think they have really good corners. Their safeties are really, really instinctive players as well. And then when you look at what they're able to do in the run game, when you play man coverage and you have a smaller shell on top, you're obviously able to get more in the run game. So running the ball on them is going to be tough because they have an extra hat in the run game. So you got to find a way to affect him somehow, or spread the ball out and not let them just make it a small in the box game.
Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Will, thanks a lot for your time. Looking forward to seeing you out there on Monday.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys, man. Go Bucks.
Rick.
Gents, thanks. Let's break down that tail of the tape between the Ohio State offense and the Notre Dame defense. Strength versus strength. Couple of veteran play callers on each side. You have Chip Kelly for Ohio State, Al Golden for Notre Dame, guys who have been head coaches at the highest level, and it obviously shows as you look at the numbers for the Buckeye offense and the Notre Dame defense, respectively. Rick Pizzo back in studio here with Jerry DiNardo. We just heard from Will Howard, Riley Leonard, his counterpart for Notre Dame, somewhat similar in their quarterbacking styles and the way that they look physically, and the fact that they're quarterbacks who can beat you not just with their arms, but if you sag a little bit, they can beat you in the run game as well.
Right, no doubt. And this is the era of portal quarterbacks, right? I mean, this isn't going to be the last time that two portal quarterbacks are playing for a national championship. They're similar because they're both veterans. They're both portal quarterbacks. They both impact the run game. Now, they impact the run game in a little different way. Will Howard's more of an option guy when they want to run it. Now, Chip didn't run Will against Texas. I don't remember one option. I may have missed one, but I studied that tape pretty close. So he may run some more option against Notre Dame. Riley Leonard is more of a scrambler when he's being pressured. He's more of a counter quarterback run. In other words, you gain a blocker. In the option, you're optioning a blocker. In a counter quarterback game, which they ran against their last opponent, you'll see the guard and tackle pull like a tailback play, and then Riley Leonard would run up through the B and C gaps. So they both bring the run game, as you mentioned. Pass game, numbers aren't great. Of course, Will Howard's better, but he's got great receivers. The one thing I'm really curious to watch, and this has to do with the quarterback play, against Penn State, tempo gave the Notre Dame defense some trouble. Notre Dame really never recovered from the up-tempo of Penn State, but Penn State got away from it. I'm wondering if Ohio State will do some up-tempo with Will Howard against Notre Dame, because it did give Notre Dame some problems against Penn State. And then when Tyler Warren came out of the game, then that's when they stopped with the tempo.
Of course, one thing that's given every opposing defense for Ohio State trouble this year is trying to keep up with those wide receivers, though Texas did a great job in locking down Jeremiah Smith. And while this is always going to be an edge for Ohio State, Notre Dame's back seven, and that secondary specifically, really good in coverage, and they can mix up the coverages that they play.
Yeah, I think this is one of the closer matchups, is the perimeter players of Ohio State and the back end of the Notre Dame defense. Now, when you go back to the Texas game, Texas doubled Smith, and they played zone. Now, think about it. If you play in zone, you have one less guy in the box. One reason to play man coverage is to get the added defender into the box. What do you do when you play zone? You take a defender out of the box. So if you're going to do this to Jeremiah Smith, which Texas did, they only held him to one reception, then you're vulnerable with the run game. And we all know about the Ohio State backfield. I mean, we just heard Junkins talk about how they share, right? They share the ball, and they can have two real good running backs. Penn State does the same thing.
Yeah, within 10 yards of each other are Henderson and Judkins. And Chip Kelly has shown us, yes, we love the pass game, but in this playoff, especially the first two games, we're using the pass game early to set up the run, and it was the run that salted those first two playoff wins away.
Yeah, and let me mention something Judkins said. You know, him and Henderson are splitting time. The two backs at Penn State are splitting time. And I say that because a lot of the conversation is about the portal, is about NIL. These are unselfish players. And the other thing, it helps their future, because if you're an NFL scout and these running backs have taken less hits, that helps you because they come to you with less hits. So unselfish players, but it also benefits both of them as they go to the NFL.
Less mileage on those tires. I would also say, Jerry, we heard from Quinshon Judkins, we heard from Carnell Tate, we heard from Will Howard. And to hear all these guys speak, we said this during the year about Oregon and the way that Dan Lanning and his philosophy and his mentality had clearly seeped into his players, and you could tell when you hear them speak. I would say the exact same thing right now about this Ohio State team.
How about a player-only meeting plus the head coach?
Yeah.
I mean,
Coach, you're invited.
Right.
Nobody else can come.
None of the other. I mean,
right.
That's what when they lost to Michigan and Ryan Day had that meeting with players only and himself. That changed the season.
Ohio State has made it back after that Michigan loss. Notre Dame has made it back after the NIU loss. The Buckeyes and Fighting Irish play for it all on Monday night, with the national title up for grabs. Just in, Jeremiah Smith is very good at football. Smith, as a freshman, 14 touchdown receptions, this season. That's tied for the second most in Ohio State team history behind only Terry Glenn and alongside some pretty good names in Marvin Harrison Jr. and David Boston. Of course, Smith was kind of shut down by Texas, just 3 targets and 1 catch in that win over the Longhorns, and yet it didn't bother the young fellow one bit.
It's pretty frustrating, but I got to do what's best for the team. I can't be selfish. We got other guys on the team as well that could do what I could do. But, I'm not a selfish player. I come from humble beginnings, and I'm not just all about me. It's not just all about me. It's about the whole team as well. So, if I got to be a decoy this game as well, I'm going to be a decoy. Whatever help us win, all I want to do is win. So, if that's what it takes for me to be a decoy just to win the game, I'll do that, no matter. I feel good going into this game. I know they play 80% man, so we just ready for the challenge this upcoming Monday. What makes me most proud? I don't think nothing really made me proud for sure. I think I just went out there and just play football. I should say something that I've been doing for a very young age. I'm just happy to be on this stage right now. Just be able to be competing for a national championship. So. Okay. Oh yeah, for sure. You had guys like Chris Carter. You had guys like Michael Thomas. Really, them 2 guys for sure. Michael Thomas was talking to me before the game, or the Rose Bowl, and Chris Carter, and after the game as well. Just them giving me advice. Telling me keep God first, and just keep doing what I've been doing the whole year. Them guys Buckeye legends. So definitely look at them guys for sure. Major respect. It means a lot. Just a kid from Miami, just be able to play in the national championship as a freshman, something that I dreamed of as a kid, and I'm here now, and can't wait to put on the show Monday. He said again, I can't. The tension, like you said, it's been crazy each and every week playing. But can't let it get to my head, I should say. Just football at the end of the day. But just happy to be in this position. None of us think we could be covered man on man. We'll actually talk about this yesterday as well, but, that's what they do. That's what they do. We just got to go out there, play our game and, show them reason why not to play man on man. Two. 4. 3. 1. I'll go 5. That's correct. No problem. My mindset, just to go out there on Monday and just dominate the person that's in front of me. Just do what I've been doing for the last 2 to 3 weeks, I should say. But they play man on man, so I'm just ready for the challenge.
Look at most national championship appearances by school. This since 1998. Alabama leads the way with 9. Ohio State second on this list with 6. Yes, all of these programs have had stars walk through their doors, take the field for their respective schools, but you also have to have those role players, underrated guys to help you get to the college football promised land. And one of those men is standing by with our crew as we take you back to Atlanta.
And joined now by the second leading tackler for the Buckeyes, Sonny Styles. Sonny, I want to talk a little bit about this defense on the goal line this year and why you guys have been as exceptional as you have. It probably is the aspect of this D that has been the most outstanding of this unit. Why are you guys so good in those situations?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset Coach Knowles instills in us. He has a saying, he says, give us an inch and we will defend it. So, I mean, we get down there, I think the mindset just kicks in and guys just get in the fight mode.
Bigger picture here. This is the #1 scoring defense in the country. What has Jim Knowles instilled in this unit that has allowed you guys to play to that level?
And I think he instills confidence in us. You know, every game we go out there, before the game he tells us, man, any of your mistakes are on me. So you just go out there and play. Go make plays. You don't got to worry about any mistakes. You don't got to worry about messing up. Just go play fast. And I think, you know, hearing that from your DC just gives you so much confidence, and you just go out there with a free mind, just play fast.
I've been a huge fan of your skill set. You making the move coming down to the linebacker, being able to play in the box. How was that development, and how have you really grown as a player for doing that?
Yeah, you know, obviously it was a little different for me at first. I think I've gotten better each week. I think Coach Laurinaitis and Coach Knowles have done a great job coaching me up and getting me better. I think Cody's done a great job. He's really helped me become a better player. He's so veteran. I think he just gives me great nuggets every now and then that's helping me get better. But I think the biggest thing, you just got to be comfortable. You got to just trust yourself and go. I think as a linebacker, you got to be instinctual and let your instincts kick in. And I think I've been letting myself do that more and more each week.
We grew up in the same hometown, Pickerington, Ohio, so I do have to brag for our hometown. Jack Sawyer made the big play. Shout out to Pickerington. But I grew up watching the Ohio State defense, the Silver Bullets, and there was just a standard and an emotional energy that those defense played with. Can you talk about the standard that your defense takes on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you want to live up to that expectation of the Silver Bullet, you know, flying around, 11 guys on the field, flying around to the ball, playing fast and physical. You know, I think when guys aren't playing to that expectation, we let each other know, too. I mean, it's been times in camp when we got into guys are arguing a little bit like, hey, this isn't the expectation right here. And I think when you got guys like that, you know, holding each other to a standard, that's when you get a great defense. And I think that's why we've been able to play we have this year.
I think the play up front, that D-line has done a great job for you guys. But what does that allow you all to do when you know that that defensive front can get to the quarterback?
Man, I mean, when you got a 4-man rush getting there in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you got 6, 7 guys dropping into coverage. I mean, I think it makes the defense so much easier for us. And, you know, you got a 4-man, 6-man box, stopping the run, things like that. I think that makes the job a lot easier for Coach Knowles. You know, I definitely appreciate those guys up front. You know, I tell Ty League all the time, I say, appreciate you for keeping me clean. Let me get the free tackles.
There have been a lot of tackles this year for Sonny Styles, nearly 100 this season. Appreciate your time, Sonny, and we'll see you out there on Monday.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
Rick?
Another tail of the tape look at Ohio State against Notre Dame. Irish, with just that one loss to Northern Illinois, Buckeyes have overcome defeats at the hands of both Oregon and Michigan to reach the national championship game. Multiple wins against top 25 opposition, and when these teams win, they typically win big. Wasn't necessarily the case for Ohio State against Texas. Needed a late strip sack from Jack Sawyer. We'll hear from Jack in just a little bit, but first, we get the take on that play from one of his defensive teammates, JT Tuimoloau.
That height, Jack made a great move off the edge. I've seen him done it in practice so many times, and haven't seen him, take one to the house from that far. We got a little glimpse of it at Purdue, but, just see him pick it up. And, you can call him moving. He was moving a little bit. And, just to be a part of that moment, I mean, it felt like the whole world stopped for a little bit. The crowd went silent. It was just us just running like it is in practice. But, that was like the whole scene. And it's a true blessing and honor just to be a part of it, of course. I mean, I'm not surprised. Donnie, he's a great athlete. He's a great man. He's just a hey, Mitch. He's just a man of many talents. Don't tell him I told you this. If you ask him to sing "Single Lady" by Beyonce, that will explain how he's able to move positions so quick. Because he just has the talents to sing, and also the talents to get better at left tackle, or move to left tackle and just do his thing at left tackle. You didn't hear from me, but you know, I say you bring it up to him and just, you know, let him speak for himself. Yeah, it's Donnie. Sure. Yep. You know, it's a tough one. There's not too many. Take your time. Yeah. Yeah. Does Tonka play? Nah, it has to be Mitchell Mellon. Mitchell Mellon, that's my boy, man. That's my boy. Shout out Mitchell Mellon. Hey, yeah.
What is your dream vacation?
Oh, dream vacation? Probably got to go back to the islands. Probably got to go back to Samoa and just, you know, see the roots. See the roots. Yeah, it's a great one, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's an honor. It's a blessing. I mean, you know, the 2 losses we took, we didn't really understand what was ahead of us, but we know if we just stick together, lean on the Lord, lean on our faith and the brotherhood, that, you know, it'll take us somewhere far and, you know, be able to have a chance to play in this one and just to, you know, really erase all the things we haven't accomplished yet. I mean, it'll be an honor, but we understand we got to take some crucial steps to get there, starting with today at practice, just making sure we're on point and sharp about everything.
JTT, one of those Buckeyes that can get after the quarterback. Ohio State 3rd nationally in total sacks by FBS teams this season with more than 50. Of course, they had 8 in that Rose Bowl win over Oregon. And then perhaps one of the most famous this season, the strip sack by Jack Sawyer on Quinn Ewers, his former teammate, former roommate, to salt away Ohio State's win over Texas. And for more on the man who scored Ohio State's last touchdown, we take you back to Atlanta.
Thrilled to have the star of the Cotton Bowl with us here, Jack Sawyer. Jack, what has the last week been like for you since that play against Texas?
No, it's been fun. You know, I'm just, I'm more focused on playing the national championship. You know, God's blessed us with a great opportunity to go and end this thing the right way. And what better way to play your last game in a Buckeye uniform than competing for a national championship?
Well, the last time Ohio State won a national championship, you were at home in Ohio, as avid a Buckeye fan as there was, screaming with joy at the television. You've talked a lot about going out into your yard and pretending that you were an Ohio State player. So what does it mean, not just to be a part of a team playing for a national championship for the Buckeyes, but to be one of the stars?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a dream come true. You know, I thank God every day I get to wake up and put the scarlet and gray on. And like you said, you know, I remember just 10 years ago when I was watching them do it as a fan, as a little kid, you know, loving Ohio State, and now being here and being a part of the team and having an impact on the game is something I dream about, you know, growing up, and it's such a blessing, and I'm so excited for the opportunity to go out there and compete Monday night.
You know, your D-line is outstanding, being able to get to the quarterback with 4. Yeah. But this is a Notre Dame offensive line that wants to get physical, wants to be physical, play this game in a phone booth. Does that change the mindset of the D-line as you get prepared for this game?
Yeah, I think the mindset stays the same. You know, the whole year we've had the attack mentality. Like you said, they do as well. And they got a great offensive line, you know, a really good running back and a dynamic quarterback that can run as well. So they present a lot of challenges when you're talking about schematics. So we know that we're going to have to be on our game and execute at a high level, because the team that executes the best is going to win the game.
You were part of that 2021 Ohio State recruiting class, the best recruiting class in the history of Ohio State. So expectations have been sky high. One final game, one final opportunity. What does this opportunity mean to you?
Yeah, it means everything to us. Me and myself and the team and Coach Day means everything to us, because when we signed our name on the dotted line, you know, we haven't fulfilled those promises yet. And here we are to fulfill the biggest dream and the biggest achievement you can in the sport in our last game out together. It's just such a great opportunity. We're excited for it.
You know, it's pretty amazing to think back to the Michigan game, and you have talked a lot. You wrote about it this week, I thought, really well and really eloquently.
Thank you.
About the team meeting that you guys had with the whole team and Ryan Day about moving forward. And we asked Coach Day a little bit about it. I want to ask you a little bit about it.
Yeah.
When you left that meeting, did you believe that this was possible?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm flattered you guys think I wrote it. I didn't write it. The editors did a great job with it. But yeah, I mean, to your point though, the team meeting with Coach Day and the players, it was a grown man conversation. You guys have played the sport and been in the locker rooms before with Jake and those guys, and you guys know how it gets. It gets heated. People get mad. Frustrations are running high, and we had to talk it out. And we had to know we were going to have a chance to play in the playoffs, and we knew we had to come out there and give it our best shot. And so everyone got everything off their chest they needed to do. Ended in a team prayer, and we went to work. And that's what you've seen. We knew we were going to come into playoffs and swing as hard as we possibly can, and we've done just that.
I want to talk about Caleb Downs. Obviously, you guys have a ton of talent on your defense, but it seems Caleb is the problem solver. He's the glue that brings everything together. Can you talk about what he brings to your defense?
Yeah, I mean, he brings, he's only a sophomore, but man, it feels like, he's a 10-year NFL vet with how smart he is, how fast he reads his keys, gets downhill, and he plays behind the line of scrimmage a lot of times at free safety, which is not an easy thing to do as a safety in football. So how smart he is and what he brings to this team, I can't even put into words. And he's been a great leader. He's been approached every day with a business attitude since he first stepped foot in Columbus. And, man, he's a special guy, and we're happy to have him.
Jack, congratulations on all your success here, and we're looking forward to seeing you coming up here on Monday.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, thanks.
Quarterbacks not only go under center, they always stand front and center, and that'll certainly be the case for Ohio State's Will Howard and Notre Dame's Riley Leonard on Monday night in the national championship game. Good news for Ohio State, the good starts for the Buckeyes. Look at OSU in the first quarter of the CFP, outscoring its three opponents 42-0. They've set the tone defensively, which has allowed the offense to control the ball and light it up. 24 first downs in the first quarter alone in their 3 CFP wins. The man calling the strings and calling the plays, Chip Kelly, on what he's seen and what he hopes to see Monday night.
I think it all depends on the individual. And so what's the makeup of the individual? Sometimes the transfer thing is a home run and it works. And then sometimes the transfer thing is it doesn't work. But I think it's really the matchup and is it a good match for the school and for the player? Yes, Lincoln. My favorite quarterback in the room, it depends on what we're doing. So I think all of them have a unique skill set in terms of what we're doing. But there's 3 quarterbacks that will ride and die with the quarterback coach. And maybe if we're late for a meeting, we'll be late for a meeting together. And there was one that he didn't even come get us. So we're still a little mad about him. Thanks, Lake. Yeah, just amazing consistency. Like Carnell, I think to be a great receiver, you have to be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, with separation and catch the ball. And Carnell is there every single time. Like if Carnell's supposed to be 18 yards on the left hash, when you look up, when the quarterback gets to his second read, Carnell is at 18 yards at the left hash. Like there's just a consistency to Carnell. He's an unbelievable ball tracker. So there's really a huge catch radius in terms of what he does. And there's a toughness to him. A lot of our blocking schemes, he's our flanker, our Z. He's involved in a lot of digging out safeties, digging out linebackers. And Carnell, even though he doesn't look like it, he's probably our most physical blocker out there. So there's just a consistency to CT that I think sometimes you take for granted, but he's always where he's supposed to be and gets the job done. Yeah, I mean, he's a starting wide receiver at The Ohio State, so I think that's a pretty good deal. And I think he's just such a competitor that he wants to win, and he wants. That's the most important thing. I think he's not a guy that's about how many catches am I going to get. You know, you can be that guy, but all those guys that are about how many catches am I going to get, they're at home right now. They're not playing for a national championship, and what Carnell wants to do is win a national championship with his brothers. He cares extremely about the guys on his team, and I think that's part of this whole team. I think it's a really, really, really unselfish football team. Is what do we need this week? You know, and in the Texas game, we needed Carnell. He was our leading receiver. You know, in the Northwestern game, he was our leading receiver. So, you know, how defenses are going to try to defend us, you need all weapons. And how does it work out on Monday night? I don't know, but I know I'm extremely grateful that we got Carnell, JJ, and Mech out there. So, thanks. Yeah. Well, I would hope every receiver has that mindset. That's probably not the case, but, other teams have played us in man. JJ's biggest plays in the Oregon game, I think people don't understand football because they were against zone. So it wasn't like, JJ ran a post route on a middle safety. And it wasn't a man-to-man coverage, and no one was running with JJ because it wasn't man coverage. So I think people are like, how do you play JJ? Well, I think 2 of his touchdowns, they were zone coverages, and he exploited them. So I think sometimes people get caught up in that, like, how do you play this guy man? Well, sometimes he's more dangerous against zones than he is against man because there's more space to the defense. I think maybe they think they'll be closer to routes, but I think you have to prepare for all. You just can't go into a game and say they're going to do this or they're going to do that. I think you got to have an answer if they're going to do. And they do other things. It's not like they just play man the entire game. They do a good job in cover 3, good job in cover 4, good job in cover 6. They're good in all aspects of their defense. No, I think it really is. You got to be good versus it all because there's not a. If it's zone, he's going to have a great game. If it's man, he's not going to have a great. He's been good against both in the 3 games leading up to this, and really the entire season. You don't complete 74% of your passes if you're only good versus one coverage. And I think Will does a really good job of pre-snap understanding his reads, post-snap understanding if there's any change in the coverage, and then understanding if it's zone, the ball's got to go here. If it's man, the ball's got to go here. Yeah, there's less administrative things. There's less overall. Like, I don't have anything to do with the defense. I don't have anything to do with special teams. Obviously, as the head coach, you're involved in offense, defense, special teams. I recruit a position. I recruit a side of the ball. I don't recruit on the defensive side of the ball. The head coach has to recruit on the defensive side of the ball. So just what my focus on is more offense and position-specific quarterback than having to deal with the whole program. So those are really the biggest differences between being a coordinator and being a head coach.
When the Buckeyes win big. 11 victories by at least 10 points this season. That's tied for the second most in the country. And looking at who is number 1, no surprise, Notre Dame won 12 games by at least 10 points this season. A lot of connections between the Irish and the Buckeyes, and this photo includes one of them, Marcus Freeman, James Laurinaitis, both pictured. Former teammates, very good friends, of course, former colleagues working together on Freeman's staff at Notre Dame, and now Laurinaitis back home with the Buckeyes and with our crew as we head back to Atlanta.
Joined by linebackers coach James Laurinaitis, our former colleague here at the Big Ten Network. Hey, James, this has got to be fascinating for you, right? I mean, you were on Marcus Freeman's staff at Notre Dame. Now you're at Ohio State. Like, what is this matchup meant to you?
Well, talking to Marcus earlier in the week, it's not about us. It's about Notre Dame and Ohio State. But there is the human element of it. I'm proud of my friend. He's done a really good job leading that program. And there's so many relationships. There's multiple players on that team that I coached, that I had over to my house in South Bend, that my daughters know. And so there's an emotional component to that. But once that ball hits the foot, or the foot hits the ball, you got to go. It's all about X's and O's and playing really, really hard.
Talk to us a little bit about that linebacking group, because that really is a fascinating group, and they play hard, obviously run really well to the football.
Yeah, that's where football all starts, right? And so part of our culture is 4 to 6 A to B plus 2, right? 4 to 6 seconds is the average length of a play. Can you go from point A to point B as hard as you can? And then if you're supposed to run 10 yards, go 12, go plus 2, right? It's an effort, it's a mindset. And so if you do that, that covers up a lot of explosive plays on defense, right? You just run to the ball really, really hard. People are going to miss tackles. Everything's not going to be perfect, but you can cover up a lot. So that's how I would like to think that I played the game. You try to instill that in your guys, and then you'll get to the technique stuff and all the little fundamentals that carry over into Saturdays.
You're a great leader, a captain. This team is full of great leaders. I know you're a man of faith. The team seems to be a team of faith. Can you talk about the connected nature and how special it is to be a part of this team?
It all starts with the leadership. We have a lot of guys who are elite leaders, like you said, who are guys who are, they say what they mean, and they mean what they say, and they just go to work day after day after day. And when you have a veteran group like that, and then we've been blessed, like our young players are very mature. Like Caleb Downs doesn't feel like a sophomore. Like when he's around his professionalism, he seems like a junior or senior. Jeremiah Smith seems like a junior or senior with the way he prepares. So we're just fortunate that the older guys help the younger guys. And, everyone claims that they have a brotherhood, right? The brotherhood. But the brotherhood at Ohio State has always been about paying it forward. And our guys before me helped us. I hope that we've helped the guys younger than us. It's continued on and on.
Well, James, pleasure to visit with you. It's been a ton of fun to watch you have all this success. You were a great broadcaster. Oh. You've obviously turned into a great coach as well. We appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, man.
Miss you guys.
Yeah, you liar.
The feeling is mutual. All right, let's go back to Chicago.
Don't forget, he was a pretty good player at linebacker for Ohio State as well. Speaking of this year's Ohio State defense, Jerry, if you're Jim Knowles, the DC for Ohio State, who's done just a tremendous job this year, how do you start your defensive game plan against this Notre Dame offense?
Every defensive coordinator starts every defensive game plan with how many people do we need in the box to stop the run. Jim Knowles is no different. Yeah, Jim Knowles and Golden are two pretty aggressive defensive play calls. So when the Ohio State defense is on the field, do they need 7 in the box or 8 in the box to stop the Notre Dame run? I mean, that's really where it starts. And then from there, if you're in a pass situation, can Ohio State get pressure on Riley Leonard with 4? If they can stop the run with 7 in the box and with a 4-man rush, they're going to win the game. Once they start adding people to the box is when now the onus is on the Notre Dame offense to try to get some big plays.
And we saw Ohio State, especially in that Oregon game, just owning the Oregon offensive line with just 4, allowing the back 7 to sit back and really giving Dylan Gabriel absolutely no time to throw. And Notre Dame's a little banged up offensively. We don't know the total health of Love, their running back, and they're missing some key pieces on the offensive line.
Right. Anthony Knapp, a true freshman starting in Notre Dame. He was a 5-star recruit. He's out. So, I mean, they're going to have to try to recover from that. The one thing that the Ohio State defense is going to have to be careful with is Riley Leonard and the run game. Again, they're not that much of an option team with the run game. They run more direct runs, more predetermined quarterback runs, because remember, when the quarterback runs the ball, you gain a blocker. So Jim Knowles is going to have to try to figure out if Riley Leonard becomes a major part of the run game, which he's a major part of the previous games, Rick, not virtually just in numbers, but short yardage he'll get it. He'll create what we're watching here. He'll scramble on a pressure defense. So he's valuable with the ball in his hand when he's running the ball.
All that being said, I would be shocked to not see Caleb Downs back in that rover position, and for Jim Knowles to allow his defensive backs when they have to go one-on-one. You say, Riley Leonard, if you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us with your arm. You're not going to beat us with your legs. Notre Dame, Ohio State for the national championship in Atlanta. Clock ticking down until National Championship Monday inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, where Ohio State and Notre Dame will play to be the last team standing in the first ever 12-team college football playoff. You see the teams on this list with the most ever CFP wins. Alabama, 9 wins and 3 titles. Clemson and Ohio State each have 6 victories. Of course, the Buckeyes with 3 already this year, trying to get a 4th. Let's get some thoughts from our guys again as we take you once again to Atlanta and what they've heard from Ohio State during today's National Championship Media Day.
Thanks. Fun to talk to the Buckeye players here at Media Days. What did you learn in talking to them?
I think one of the things you think about, right, you talk about a maturity of a football team. Really, they are putting a lot of weight in that team meeting that they had with the coaches, with the coach, and also the teams to really find out where they needed to go to make the run that they've just gone on and are one game away from. So I think that's some of the insight that we've been able to glean since we've been here.
there's just a sense of togetherness and maturity. This feels like certainly from a talent standpoint, this is an NFL team. There's NFL talent all over the roster, but there's a sense of professionalism for college kids that they seem at ease and confident. And the Michigan game and the Oregon game in the season, some of that, the offseason narratives, I think, worked against them, where they carried that weight, where they felt they had to prove something or live up to some type of standard. Where what we've seen in these past 3 games, and now what I felt talking to these players, is they don't need to prove anything. They know who they are and what they're capable of, and their goal is to just go play to that standard.
I think one of the big things that stood out to me, guys, and I'm interested if you agree, I don't think there was anyone who felt like they were happy to be here. I mean, they're happy to be here in that they have to be here in order to accomplish the ultimate goal, but I don't think there's anyone kind of basking in the glow of, wow, I'm playing in the national championship game. They're basking in the glow of the possibility of being a national champion. I think there's a significant difference there, and I think it speaks to what you guys are talking about, this single-minded purpose with this group.
I think one of the things I always talk about this. I talk about what happens from the front of the room, the person speaking from the front of the room, and whether or not the players are buying into it. When they buy into it, you're hearing the same thing. The story is not complete. There's so many stories on this team that they feel like they want to be able to tell, and they want to finish it the right way so some of those stories can be told. And that speaks to the maturity. It goes right back to that. I don't think that, and you know this from covering basketball, veteran teams make the run in championships. Talented teams do too, but the veterans are the ones that ultimately end up winning it. Go back to your team last year, Michigan. Veteran team. You look at this Ohio State, veteran team. Veteran teams can really withstand the pressure that's going to be placed on them and be able to answer the call.
Yeah, I think they understand this is their last opportunity. And Jack Sawyer, at one point the #1 player in high school football in that class, how talented they were. They understand this is their last chance to go do something special. I also think that they've matured from an outside narrative standpoint, which was preseason Ohio State heavy favorite to win the national title. And then after the Michigan game, people are saying, man, I don't know if they'll win a single playoff game. They now understand that the outside noise means nothing. It's about what they do and what they put on tape. And I don't think they're happy to be here because they respect Notre Dame and understand the challenge that lies ahead on Monday night.
I think one of the really cool things about this team is they were in the right place at the right time, because no other team in the history of college football would have had this opportunity that the Buckeyes have. The loss to Michigan would have been a disqualifying loss because of the Oregon game. I mean, maybe they could have made it into a 14 playoff with just the one loss. Who knows? And the same is true of Notre Dame. The loss to Northern Illinois would have been a disqualifying loss previously. So both of these teams have an advantage, are in a situation that no other team in the history of the sport would have ever been in, and now they have a chance to make it pay off here on Monday. Been a great day here so far in Atlanta. A couple more great days to come. Can't wait. Let's go back to Chicago.
Not exactly a Chamber of Commerce weekend in Atlanta, though inside the Georgia World Congress Center and Mercedes-Benz Stadium, weather should be just fine, thank you very much, for Media Day on Saturday, which we're wrapping up, and of course, for the national championship game on Monday. And when we get to Monday, don't forget we have national championship pregame coverage starting at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, and we'll wrap up the night with postgame coverage as soon as they are done at the Natty. Heard a lot from Ohio State. Now, for the Notre Dame perspective, here's head coach Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, it won't be something you think about once the game starts. But again, you talk about a guy that you care about more than the game of football. We have a personal relationship with our wives know each other really well. Our kids know each other really well. And so he's a friend. And at the end of the day, you care about friends. But when the game starts, it's going to be about winning. And I look forward to the opportunity.
Hang on 1 second. We're going to try to fix the audio. Kevin, we got an audio. I had a chance to talk with your brother.
Oh, yeah? My brother?
Your brother.
Oh, Lord.
Trey is so cute.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. He is the cutest boy. Sure. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Allison? Yeah. Good? All right.
2.0, sorry.
Yep.
2.0. Will you just repeat your answer so make sure we get the answer on audio nice and good about you?
Yeah, obviously James is a dear friend of mine that goes beyond the game of football, a relationship that's been developed since we were in college. And, you know, once the game starts, You're not going to be worried about a friendship or anything like that. We both have jobs to do. But, again, our families are pretty close, and we will forever be close friends regardless of what happens here in this game. Yeah. How are you? You know, there's not just one thing you can do to defend Jeremiah Smith. He's one of the best receivers I've ever seen in the college football game at a young age. He's a dynamic football player. He's physically a big presence, but he can run and he can catch. And so you're going to have to do some different things to try to keep him off balance, but also keep the rhythm of the quarterback off balance. But the other part of that is we got good players too. We got to do what we do, and we're going to trust our guys to, you know, get the job done no matter what we call defensively. You know, I still believe strongly you have to stop the run. We got to do some things defensively to make sure we can stop the run, and we got to be really good in the red zone. That's going to be something we have to be, is really good in the red zone. And then we just got to, you know, do some things to make the quarterback try to think and not keep him in rhythm. So it'll be a difficult challenge, but we're looking forward to it.
Were those things that you mentioned things that you saw from Michigan in particular, or just overall things? I didn't know if there was something in the Michigan game that they did that stood out.
Yeah, I think that, you know, there's some things that happened in the Michigan game that, you know, Michigan did really well, and Ohio State maybe didn't do so well. But what you can't do is look at another team's defense and say, this is what we're going to do. You have to do what your team currently does really well. And that's the nature of the game. Any coach that tells you they just followed somebody else's plan, it's probably not going to be that successful. You know, we got to make sure that we can take some ideas from what other teams have done to have success, but really implement them based off how they fit within our system.
Final minute here, Rick Pizzo with Jerry DiNardo. 1 minute won't define Monday night's national championship game, but there was one moment that kind of does define Ohio State's season.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer talked about the team meeting he had. Players only and Ryan Day. It wasn't about the NIL. It wasn't about paying players. It wasn't about the portal. It was about winning the championship. And they rallied as a team. And I maintain that this game has only gotten better. And for those people that don't like the changes, to think that anyone wanted to win a championship more than these young people playing in this game Monday is ignorance and arrogance. The game hasn't changed. It's about the young people that were in that team meeting room.
And young quarterbacks who care about their teams deeply, despite both being transfers playing their first years at their respective schools. That'll wrap up our coverage of National Championship Media Day, just a couple of days away from Ohio State or Notre Dame being crowned kings of college football.